Good morning. Another year and another protest here in Arrecife, Lanzarote. These are the Canary Island protests that the mainstream media will have you believe are anti-tourism. I'm here today to, see what's going on, find out what the local people are protesting about. Will it be anti-tourism? Well, we'll ask people on the protest to see exactly what they say. There might be a handful of people that will have banners that say tourists go home, but like I've said in previous videos, these are the same small-minded minority that really are there to cause disruption and cause problems rather than the real reason that this protest is on. So I'm going to try and find out what's going on, speak to some people, and let's go. Let's see. So as the crowds gathered at the Kiosco de Musica, which is where the protest was in Lanzarote, well, all over the Canary Islands, there were different protests starting at 11 a.m. From here, they would march up to the Cabildo of Lanzarote, where the politicians are. This is a political protest, and although it is regarding tourism, it's about over-tourism and what they call sustainable tourism. Now, I'm going to try and speak to as many people as I can on the protest, just to see what they say, so that you can see what the real message is. Because unfortunately, the mainstream media tend to twist things, and what is a peaceful, important protest for the local people of the Canary Islands has been twisted into a "don't come to the Canary Islands. The Canary Island people do not want you." Right then, so as I said, I'm here at the protest to find out exactly what it's about. So I've met a lovely lady here. Now, you guys are all wearing the red t-shirts. Mm-hmm. So what is this, like a group?
Well, this t-shirt is from Fundación César Manrique. So
okay.
Yeah, that's a non-profit foundation that takes care of our, cultural history.
I know, so the César Manrique Foundation.
César Manrique Foundation.
Yeah. In the mainstream media in the UK and Ireland, mm-hmm. if you read the headlines, they say, do not go to the Canary Islands because the Canary Islands doesn't want you.
I don't think that's exactly how, the feeling everyone is experiencing. What's happened is we're more and more impoverished as time goes by. We see that we are having problems finding housing. We are having problems with water. Most towns and villages in Lanzarote do not have water every day.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's a real issue. Prices keep going up in housing, in groceries, and and there's a problem with jobs as well. Because even though they keep building hotels and they keep building apartments, people cannot find stable jobs and well-paid jobs. So that's why the people in Lanzarote are angry. They're primarily angry at politicians, but at the same time they're asking tourists to be aware of the situation and be mindful.
And is it not a problem also that, we're in Arrecife, which is the capital, and I see all these buildings here that these are family homes and these are being rented out as holiday homes.
Exactly. And the main issue is that it's not even Lanzarote people who are doing that, who are renting out their properties for tourists. It's people from abroad. It's people from European countries that are buying everything.
They're buying the flats and then renting them as holiday homes. There you go. So it's interesting to see that. So for me, I know you said that not to build more hotels. We don't want more hotels. But at the same time, I'm trying to get the message over to tourists that if they are booking holidays, don't book out of town. Don't book in one of these little flats. Book somewhere that is made for tourism, which is a hotel or like a complex. Is that a correct message?
Yeah, it is. And at the end of the day, it's not tourists' fault at all. It's just how our politicians are regulating tourism. What we ask for is for it to be regulated.
But I hope these people at home understand. And if you are booking your holiday, book it properly, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And be mindful of the territory, especially our nature.
Yeah, exactly. I've said this before. Thank you so much for your time. It was good to get a clearer picture from the César Manrique Foundation, and after all, César Manrique is a huge influence on this island. If you don't know about him, well, look up the history. He pretty much designed the island, and they've even named the airport after him. A lot of the rules and regulations in place today are because of Cesar Manrique, and that is why the island is so beautiful. Now, this year was a little bit different to last year. Last year was more, for me, an atmosphere of celebration. It was the first ever protest, and it was everybody coming together. Don't get me wrong, it was a very peaceful protest, but there were a few people in the crowd that were causing a little bit of trouble and were maybe a little bit aggressive and trying to push the narrative of anti-tourism. Now, these are the usual people that you see in all protests. Those that may be receiving no tourists on the island wouldn't make any effect to their lives because they don't work and they have no interest in looking for work. In fact, these same people are the same people that are going around and graffitiing on walls silly messages that say no tourism. Thankfully, here in Lanzarote, we have a group of people called Lanzarote Loves Tourism, and they've took it upon themselves to make sure that the message is very well understood. In fact, while the protests were going on today, they were out painting over the graffiti that some of these small minority of people had sprayed over the walls. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me if you're saying that you want to keep the island beautiful, but yet you're going around spray painting these messages. But we have these people all over the world, and we know who they are. Unfortunately, sometimes their actions and their voices seem to be a little louder than the normal people on the protest. But all in all, everybody was in good spirits and there was no negativity whatsoever towards tourism, which I'll show you a little bit later on. As the protest continued, we managed to get a chat with a few different people with some different opinions and different information, which is always good to share with you.
Hello, good morning. We are on a demonstration against over-tourism.
Yes.
We need sustainable tourism.
Yep.
And every single person is welcome as long as they respect locals and locals' life. For example, I'm sure tourists don't know that every single week about an average of 11 towns have no water.
But what does sustainable tourism look like?
It means that the island has no more capacity for so many millions of tourists coming to the Canary Islands. That amount of tourists don't revert, don't have a projection on the welfare of the locals.
Okay.
I mean, salaries are really low.
Yeah. And what about places to live? Because I know that's a big problem, that a lot of the family homes are being rented out by
Exactly,
to tourists. No?
Vivienda vacacional,
That's the one, yeah.
which means that locals have no choice. With a salary of 1,300 euros, how can you possibly rent an apartment, a flat, for 900 euros?
Yeah.
It's
not sustainable. The mainstream media is saying don't come to Lanzarote because it's dangerous. Don't come to the Canary Islands because the local people don't want you there. So what do you say to those?
I just laugh because it's absolutely a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie. Welcome to the Canary Islands. Welcome to Lanzarote.
Yeah.
And we should work together.
Exactly. That is what it's all about.
Future.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So I think you can see from these lovely people that I've already spoken to that it's not against tourism. The island knows that it relies on tourism, but this tourism and all the money that comes from tourism is not being spent on the local people. It's not being spent on bettering the life of local people. In fact, what makes me wonder is, were these problems around before the likes of Airbnb and Booking.com? I mean, we are all booking holidays a lot differently these days. Back in the day, it was always with a tour operator. You'd more than likely stop in a hotel. Lots of people had holiday homes here and there that they'd rent out. There was never a problem. But now it seems with the likes of Airbnb and Booking.com, it's so much easier to rent your accommodation to a tourist rather than a local. And I've said before that also landlords don't have the security in order to rent to locals, because renting to a tourist means that you're guaranteed the money and you're not going to have any problems. Of course, from what we heard today as well, is that a lot of these accommodations are actually not owned by the Canarian people, but are yet bought from outside of the Canary Islands and then rented painted as holiday homes, which I think is completely unfair. Let me know in the comments what your views are on that. In saying that, from speaking to the locals on the protest, there seems to be a couple of problems. One especially is the water, and this is news to me that a lot of the local villages actually have the water turned off between Thursdays and Saturdays. But yet the hotels all have water and all have pools full of water. So I think this is one thing that's making people very, very angry. And I think it would make you angry. Am I right?
Right then, so we are on the march now, heading towards the government building. What's your name?
I'm Alberto.
Alberto. So, Alberto, I'm here today to sort of explain to the people in England and Ireland that come on holiday that, number one, they need to respect the islands. Number two, that in the mainstream media, when you have a protest like this, unfortunately, the mainstream media will not tell the people back home the reason why you're protesting. They will say, these people are protesting because they don't want you on holiday. Do not go to the Canary Islands. Is this true or not?
The thing is not that we are not welcoming the people. We just want a more sustainable way to do it. Because right now I live in the other side of the island.
Okay.
I was born in Gran Canaria. I moved to Lanzarote due to work and stuff.
Okay.
And every Thursday I got my water shut down.
A few people have said
Saturday,
this. Yeah.
till Saturday.
Wow.
Next to me, Club La Santa has 3 Olympic swimming pools.
Wow.
And
wow.
they have the service for the whole week of their guests.
This is what the people that will be watching today, they don't understand, because what they see in the mainstream media, and I think personally what the government are telling the mainstream media to say is with the no tourism, because it pushes the focus of your problems onto the tourists instead of them taking accountability. So that's a terrible situation to be in, where you live here and you have no water and there are people in hotels with swimming pools and stuff like that. So what do you think is the solution?
The solution is just change on the way that we are receiving the tourism right now.
Yeah.
More focus on quality than in quantity. We're not dangerous. You can film all around. There's tourists right now at the beach.
Of course.
We're right in here on a Pacific way.
And what about the problem with housing? Because I see a lot of places, even in Arrecife, where they're rented out as holiday homes, where those are places for people to live.
My sister is teacher, and she wanted to come to working here in Lanzarote, but to pay a rent for a house is more than 1,000 euros. It's more than half of the salary of a teacher. So how you gonna deal with that when the local people cannot live anymore? Because there is it's focusing so much on tourism and stuff.
So tourism are welcome, but first the island and the government need to focus on you guys.
Yeah. Okay. We just want the government to focus a little bit on the people that you hear that was born here.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you. So look, there's people on the beach here, look. And nobody's bothering anybody. This is a thing. The mainstream media would have you believe that these people are going to head over to the beach and start doing stuff here. But look, there's people on the beach relaxing, and there's a parade here, and there's a protest here. So it couldn't be further from the truth.
As the protest continued towards the Cabildo of Lanzarote, well, it remained calm, it remained peaceful, it was very loud, and there was lots of shouting and some singing as well. It was actually quite a nice atmosphere. Now, there were 2 cruise ships that had docked in Arrecife, so there were a lot of tourists around. And when we got to this point, I thought this might be a point where things could change, but everybody was respectful to those people that were sitting in bars and restaurants. I did, however, feel that this was a photo opportunity for the media, that the police actually stopped the protest right outside this bar, and all of a sudden, all of the media with their cameras came and started taking pictures. For me, I think this was a media stunt to do this, and I think if you're going to see any mainstream media report, chances are there's going to be 1 or 2 photos from outside this bar. So, however bad they make it look, you've seen it live here with me. And I do try and bring you the real news on what is going on in travel. So please do make sure to follow this channel if you haven't already. As the protest made its final approach to the Cabildo de Lanzarote, the government building, well, it was a Sunday. There was no actual government officials working because, let's face it, the government officials don't work on a Sunday. So I did question exactly what impact this has had on those government officials that do make the decisions. But at least the Canarian people are standing up for themselves. And the message is very simple. They do want tourism, but they need a tourism model that is going to benefit them as local people, that's going to give them jobs, that are going to be able to pay for houses to be available, and for them to be able to live a normal life. I don't think this is a lot to ask anybody. And those of you that will make comments and say, well, if they don't want my money, I'm not coming. Well, you're the type of people that the Canary Islands doesn't need. I think sometimes as tourists, and although I have lived on the island for 20 years, I consider myself as a tourist of Lanzarote. I think we do need to respect the culture, respect the locals, and respect the island, and keep it as beautiful as it is. There has been words of a tourist tax coming into play, which is quite common in a lot of destinations. So let me know in the comments, do you think a tourist tax would solve this problem? My only consideration with that is, where is the money going to? It's going in the hands of the same people that are doing nothing with the money they're receiving at the moment. So I don't know if that would be a win-win. But all in all, the protest was a really peaceful and I hope successful protest. And on arriving at the Cabildo, the Canarian music was playing and everybody was in good spirits, although very angry.
So there you go. I hope that shows you a little bit of the protests here in Lanzarote. It's not about tourism phobia. It's not about anti-tourism. It's about the local people getting what they need, and the money that tourism brings being spent on the local people rather than other things. There's a lot of politics behind it, which I don't want to get involved with, but I've been live on TikTok today, so I've showed you exactly. It's not like I've been able to edit any of this out. I was live on TikTok. If you are watching this on YouTube, obviously I've edited the video and put it together, but I was live on TikTok and you saw there was no problems for us. There was no problems for tourists that we saw on the beach. Everybody was relaxed. Everybody was calm. There were a few that gave us a few dirty looks and wanted problems, but we avoided those. But you get that wherever you go. There's been about 5,000 people here. One or two have been not so nice and are spreading the malicious anti-tourism message. But they're the same people that you see on normal protests back home in the UK and Ireland, and they're usually the ones, well, I'm not gonna paint a picture for you. You know who they are. Anyway, from me, Mr. TravelON, thank you very much. Jack has done an amazing job as cameraman today, as always. I'll see you in the next one. You know I'll keep it real. Make sure to follow this channel. See you later.